Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily. The Polish government recently debated the project for the 2020 state budget. For the first time since the fall of communism and the transformation in 1989, the budget will have no deficit and the revenue and expenditure will be balanced at 429.5 billion zloty. Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, whilst presenting the project, announced that the expenditure on healthcare will surpass 5% GDP and there will be a 66 billion zloty investment in social matters.
Przedstawiamy Państwu dzisiaj po długich dyskusjach.
We present to you today, after long discussions, the balanced state finance plan. Let me thank all the ministers and other officials who worked on it. We want to stress that we're keeping all the previous programs and we will continue to tighten the VAT tax gap, to remove tax offenders from our system, to stop all those dishonest criminals or even the tax mafia, which I'm sure is still operating at this very moment. We're not saying that this fight is done. It will probably never end, since there are still more advanced countries than ours in the EU which are struggling to completely eradicate the problem. Nonetheless, there are fewer than before, because we were second to last place out of 28 countries 5 years ago, according to various criteria, and today we are competing with those at the top. Today, the European Commission looks to us for inspiration on how to eradicate the tax gap and how to tighten the tax system.
The Law and Justice Party is still leading in political surveys. That's according to surveys conducted by Indicator and Kantar. Over 40% of voters would support the Law and Justice Party. The Civic Coalition would finish at least 10% behind the ruling party.
If the Polish parliamentary elections were held today, the United Right would win with 41.3% of the votes. The Civic Coalition would get 25%, while the left-wing Together would win 13.3%. The Kukiz 15 movement, together with the Polish People's Party, would poll 5.8% of support. In last place, there is the Confederation, which would get 5.3%.
US President Donald Trump, who will arrive in Poland for a two-day trip on Saturday, August the 31st. The American president will take part in commemorations for the 80th anniversary of the outbreak of the Second World War. According to media speculation, Trump may announce the abolishment of visas for Poles during his visit.
The official lunch of the Polish President Andrzej Duda, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier and the US President Donald Trump will take place in the Warsaw Royal Palace after the three presidents lay raids on the tomb of the unknown soldier. In the evening, a concert performed by the Polish Orchestra and the German Choir will be held in the Great Theatre, National Opera.
Na placu Piłsudskiego wystąpienia wygłoszą prezydenci Polski.
We're expecting 40 delegations to come on the 80th anniversary of the outbreak of the Second World War. It is nearly 250 people from all over the world, including presidents, prime ministers, presidents of parliaments, ministers of foreign affairs and national defense, but also special delegates of European royal families. These are the guests of the Polish president Andrzej Duda. Presidents of Poland, Germany and the United States will give their speeches at the Piłsudski Square in Warsaw. Memory and caution, this will be the slogan of the meeting. These words will appear on a white flag attached to a wreath which will be laid by the three presidents at the tomb of the unknown soldier, located at the Piłsudski Square in Warsaw. These words will also appear on a bell prepared especially for this occasion, which later on will be given as a gift to the city of Wielun. During the celebration, each head of state will symbolically ring the bell in order to commemorate the victims of the Second World War.
The spokesperson of the Warsaw Police Headquarters, Sylwester Marczak, said that the police have been preparing for these celebrations for a couple of weeks in order to take care of safety.
People will meet police officers everywhere because we've been preparing for this visit for weeks now. And of course, that is because safety is very important. We want to ask people for patience and understanding, especially during the days of the visit.
The private talks between the Polish and the United States presidents will be held on Monday, September 2nd in the Warsaw Royal Palace. The Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki will also meet with the US President the same day.
The preparations have been going on for weeks. During their talks, both presidents will touch on the subjects of safety, economic cooperation. This visit is more proof of perfect cooperation between Poland and the United States.
The US president, together with his wife, will visit our country from August 31st to September 2nd. The presidential couple will stay at the Marriott, the most protected hotel in Warsaw, the same they stayed in for the first visit in 2017.
The ruling Social Democratic Party in Romania, PSD, has lost their parliamentary majority after its liberal junior ally, ALDE, quit the coalition government. The party will now be very vulnerable in a vote of no confidence expected to happen shortly.
The Liberal Party ALDE withdrew from the alliance 2 days after its leader, Călin Popescu-Tăriceanu, lost a bid to become the sole pro-government candidate in a presidential election scheduled for November. We tried for a long time to give credit to this coalition government because we considered that we needed political stability. I think today it is fair to have a civilized separation, and we wish the Prime Minister and her Social Democratic Party an uneventful term. We will go in opposition with all that this implies. The PSD instead picked its leader, Prime Minister Viorica Dăncilă, to challenge the incumbent president Klaus Iohannis.
In unanimity, our colleagues have decided that we must continue to govern. Apart from political interests, apart from political decisions, we have the responsibility to provide stability for the entire country. We have the responsibility to keep our promises we made to the Romanians.
Ludovic Orban, the leader of the main opposition party, the centrist National Liberal Party, or PNL, had made it clear that the party is preparing to draft a no-confidence vote to try to topple the government. We started the procedure for a no-confidence vote against Dăncilă's government. I asked the leaders of our political groups in the parliament to start negotiations with the other political parties in the parliament to obtain support for this motion of no confidence. The EU has earlier criticized the governing alliance for an overhaul of Romania's judiciary that they say threatens the rule of law, with similar accusations being leveled at Poland and Hungary. As a result, the relations between Poland, Hungary and Romania have strengthened, in particular within the framework of the Free Seas Initiative, a regional forum launched in 2016 of the initiative of Poland and Croatia, which groups together 12 states in Central Eastern Europe.
Thank you very much for joining me here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily weather. It's followed by the culture, the history and finally the travel.
Hello, and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. The forecast for tonight calls for rain in Kraków and thunderstorms in Poznań. The rest of the country can expect partly cloudy skies, with the exceptions of Olsztyn, Warsaw, and Lublin, where we can expect clear skies. The temperatures tonight should vary between 15 to 21 degrees centigrade. Tomorrow, the northwest can expect showers and thunderstorms. The weather will also stay the same throughout the night in Kraków, where we can expect rain throughout the day. The rest of the country can expect clear skies or partly cloudy skies and temperatures of 29 to 32 degrees. The next 3 days will bring showers on Thursday in the northeast, and on Friday it will bring showers in the south, west, and central regions of the country, with the weather clearing up by Saturday. That is all for now. I invite you to join us later for Poland Daily Business.
Poland Daily Business Edition. Tonight, our guest is Jakub Wiech of Energetyka24.com, an internet portal that concerns about energy issues. Sir, welcome to the show. And we are awaiting Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, who will pay a visit, very significant historically, in 80th anniversary of breakout of the Second World War, the tragic, single biggest tragic event in the world history so far. But we also want to reconfirm the Polish-American economical partnership. And how do you see this visit? Will there be any new deals announced? What we can expect?
Well, actually, the visit of President Donald Trump will be combined with the visit of U.S. Secretary of Energy, Rick Perry. And as Minister Piotr Naimski said, we can expect some continuous talk in the sphere of natural gas supplies to Poland realized by the LNG shipments. And The other significant sphere in which we can expect some new points in the dialogue between Poland and the US is the nuclear technology. However, Minister Piotr Naimski said that there will be no new agreements or no new other steps in cooperation between the US and Poland in that manner. So we can assume that the meetings that will accompany the presidential visit in the late August this year will focus on natural gas and maybe the whole complex structure of the European gas market and the Poland and the US role in it.
Mm-hmm. The European gas market is very much owned by Russia, and the Polish and Germany, obviously, that is already and aims to be a bigger gas hub. The Polish-American LNG cooperation kind of breaks that soon-to-be monopoly?
Well, it may, let's say, crash in part. In some parts of Europe. It may crash it in some parts of Europe. But what we see now on the gas market in Europe is a stress test conducted by the Russians that aims to stop Americans in supplying Europe by their LNG. Russians are lowering the price now. And the Gazprom is pumping additional values of gas.
That's the easiest thing to do, like no-brainer. If there is import from other places, let's lower our prices. We will anyway have revenue and have some profits, but they will be denied.
And they will secure their positions on the market. However, there is other significant aim in that. They want to fill the European gas storages to secure themselves and their customers during the possible crisis in the late 2019. However, Americans are handling it in a very good manner because the price of the gas on Henry Hub, that is place in the United States, and that actually dictates the prices for contracts of on LNG supplies from the US, is very low now because of the shale revolution in the America that guarantees the lower prices of LNG coming from that direction. So we are now witnessing the commercial war between Russia and US in the European gas market.
Who has lower prices of gas in order to extract them and ship to Europe?
Well, actually, it depends. It depends, for example, on the formulas used in contracts. As CEO of PGNiG company said, Mr. Piotr Woźniak, our current supplies from the United States are cheaper than the Russian gas pumped by the pipelines.
That's the ancient agreement signed by in 2006?
The current with Russian, right?
Yeah.
The agreement was signed in 2010.
2010 by Waldemar Pawlak as economy minister, right. The Peasant Party politician. Then it was revised by European Union because it was so unfavorable to Poland.
Yeah, because the former government wanted it to last till 2037, and now European Commission intervened in that and shortened the length.
Let's focus on Donald Trump's visit. What do we really want from the cooperation with America?
Well, actually, it would be good to say that Poland wants security. Poland wants security guaranteed in many manners. Not only military security or political security, but also energy security. Energy security that will be guaranteed by LNG supplies and by, let's say, protection of the United States, a shield, American shield over initiatives such like Three Seas Initiative or Baltic Pipe projects and any other activity of Polish government.
This is a shield, this is a protection, but it requires Poland to be actively participating in various activities, spend the money in American industry for weapon products and this kind of stuff.
Well, it's a harsh world, and we won't get anything for free. So we have to conduct some actual efforts in order to, let's say, to seem more attractive for the American to invest their money, their forces, their political efforts in securing Poland.
So we will see. Donald Trump will be in Poland in the end of August, a few days from now. So thank you very much for this conversation. Jakub Wiech of Energetyka24.com was our guest.
Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily Business Weather. Tomorrow the forecast calls for rain in Kraków, Poznań, Bydgoszcz, Zielona Góra, Gdańsk, Koszalin and Szczecin. Warsaw will see clear skies and a temperature of 33 degrees, while the rest of the country will see partly cloudy skies and temperatures of 29 to 32 degrees. In Europe, most of the continent will see partly cloudy skies, while the east will see clear skies. The coldest spot in Europe will be Moscow at 18 degrees, while the warmest will be Athens at 34 degrees. That is all for tonight. I thank you for joining us, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening.
Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and this is Poland Daily Culture. We have in studio with us one of the most talented young Polish vocalists. Ladies and gentlemen, Marta Zalewska.
Happy to be here.
She sings, plays a guitar and violin, and recently published her debut album. But before we dig up all Marta's music secrets, let's listen to one of her songs. Do you have already any experience with performing abroad or with also to contact a foreign audience?
Of course, I've played abroad many times, but as a supporting session musician. But my first time abroad as Marta Zalewska project, well, it's going to be the next month because I'm very happy to go with my fantastic band to Örebro. I'm still working on my accent in Swedish. Örebro, I think it's still not good, and that's actually the only word I know in Swedish. And still I pronounce it wrong. But we're going to Life at Heart Festival in Sweden. It's held in Örebro, and we're going to play on the 4th of September, so it's really soon. And some of the lyrics, the English versions that I kept in secret for so long, well, they will be sang
and released there. And for the Swedish audience, why Sweden after all? Do they have such a huge music market? Or do they want abroad musicians from Poland?
I think they do, and Life Heart is one of the biggest Scandinavian showcase festivals. There are hundreds of artists, really, really, really big festival. And it also is connected with cinema and art, many interesting things.
Did they find you, or do you find them? Did you find them and try to upload or just apply for the music festival, or did they find you and invited you in? Tell us the secret.
I'm lucky to cooperate with Tak Brzmi Miasto organization from Kraków. Actually, they helped me a lot to get to Live at Heart, so thank you.
So Live at Krakow, kind of your music management, which...
In this case, yes, absolutely.
Great. So, but going back to your CD, you have a lot of tracks which are inspired with music from 60s and 70s. What is so special in this period of music that one can hear it in your tracks?
A lot of things. How much time do we have? Well, 60s and 70s, mostly 60s. I find it era of freedom, and mostly in music. I think 60s that's the time of developing the electric guitar, and I mean Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton developed it so much that it became a screaming, very loud and free instrument, and that you can speak so many things through it. So that's one thing. Another thing, again, the freedom in singing, all this Woodstock Festival, and that freedom of choices, and this opposition against the Vietnam War. I'm really interested in history, so all this stuff, as I said, we don't have much time, but the society changes, mainly in American society. That really interested me since I remember. But what's special? I like instruments with strings.
Okay.
Of course, all synthesizers. I really appreciate the sound.
So it's flower power in your music.
Yes, and I'm really fond of instruments like guitar, Hammond organ, and I look in music in organic sounds, I would say, and this truth I find in this decade, 60s and 70s. And also, what's maybe interesting, I really like mainstream pop music from that time, not only this free rock and roll stuff, but also really simple and sweet songs from the 60s. I really like them too.
So which one is one of your favorites, for example? Can you give us a hint?
I love the Carpenters. I admire Karen Carpenter with all my heart, and that's absolutely not a screaming vocalist, because I love Janis Joplin, but on the other hand, I love Karen Carpenter, and both of them sang in the 60s. And I'm, of course, interested in fashion, in architecture, cars, design, a lot of stuff. Good times.
Well, one say, sure, we're still inspired, but also there's, I think right now in culture, there is this opposition to those times, because they were free but careless, and we are more stringed and by work and by many responsibilities, and looking at those times as like, oh, those silly parents of us who,
yes, of course,
who went to Woodstock or in US and didn't really rationalize their life so much.
Of course, I would say, let's take the inspiration, but of course I wouldn't bring every hippie idea to my life, because, I pay the taxes, I work, I'm a wife, so,
So you take the artist part, but not the core of the ideas.
I like to get inspired, but not, one by one, copy things, never.
Sure. So you're very original artist as well. We have one of your CDs. How about another one? I know it's a hard question after all. That people always ask what is more and more, and we expect artists to be sometimes just a factory of CDs or books. But of course, it's a rational question to ask. Are you working on something new?
Yes, life is short, and I'm non-stop. I'm in the process of creation. So I think I can say I have already written a few songs for my second album, and I will record it this autumn. We'll see. I hope to get it released the next year. I think it's possible.
We're looking forward to new Marta Zalewska CD next year, recorded this autumn. And for everyone who doesn't know already Marta Zalewska's first album, I recommend going to the shops or listen to an internet on YouTube, because there are a lot of songs there as well. It's a unique album, very interesting, and definitely not mainstream.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and welcome to another episode of Poland Daily History. Today, we are in the Praga district of Warsaw, in front of a statue of one of the great war heroes of the Polish Bolshevik War, Father Ignacy Skorupka. This statue is located right here, as he served this very church, and it was from here that his unit set out to confront the enemy. In early August of 1920, the Soviet Red Army was closing in on Warsaw. They were only a couple hundred kilometers away from linking arms with the Soviet revolutionary forces of Germany, Austria, and Hungary. Join us as we explore the Polish Bolshevik War, the Battle of Warsaw, and its impact on all of Europe. On August of 1920, the Communist Revolution came to the doorsteps of Warsaw. And how were the Poles able to defend their capital city?
Polakom nieoczekiwanie przyszedł z pomocą pewien drobny fakt.
Unexpectedly, a small fact came to the rescue of Poles. Tsarist troops evacuated about 1 million Poles from Poland to Russia to continue working in their armaments factories. These Poles saw the Bolshevik Revolution with their own eyes. They saw the crimes, they saw the chaos and terrible barbarism. And when they could come back to Poland in 1918, 1919, they told everyone what was waiting for Poles in the East. As a result, almost nobody was fooled by the communist propaganda. The Bolsheviks were disappointed, not so much with the resistance of the Poles, but with the lack of support for brotherly help that was to come from the East. Poles did not consider the Bolsheviks to be brothers. They considered them to represent the barbaric Asia, which destroys and loots. They were the Hun dynasty of the 20th century. As it turned out, they were correct. And then a very shocking thing happened. A national uprising spontaneously rose. Troops were created to defend individual cities. The Bolsheviks practically failed to capture a larger unit. Only some small groups that got lost were captured and murdered almost on the spot. We know a lot of such places, hence one of the Soviet troops, the 4th Horse-Drawn Division, was virtually entirely sentenced by a Polish court to death for terrible crimes. When they were taken prisoner, 280 were shot near Mława. Just one who turned out to be an honest man and who had earlier saved the life of a Polish cavalryman. The soldier had the right to ask someone else to join him, and only these two were spared. The rest of them were sentenced to death, deservedly anyway. The Soviets failed to play off the Poles against each other. Small groups of Polish communists saw the Soviet crimes and immediately gave up on communism. Even the government that was to be created in Białystok for Poles had to be brought from Moscow, because none of the locals wanted to belong to it. This government was co-created by the communist Marchlewski, who had nothing to do with Poland's independence. There was also a very bloody Pole-Lithuanian, because he was born in Lithuania, Felix Dzierżyński, several Polish Jews who also tried to replace us with legal authority. Let us add that heroic resistance was placed in 3 places around Warsaw when the Battle of Warsaw began. There is a small town called Mokra, of which we know very little, but there Captain Pogonowski died, who defended with his unit to the end. He knew that he would die, but that his death was needed so that all other units could gather around Radzymin. Radzymin, a small town with the Eye of God's Providence in its coat of arms, changed hands between the Poles and Soviets several times before, on August 15th, the Poles drove away the Bolsheviks. Finally, a small town east of Radzymin, Ossów, in which chaplain Ignacy Skorupka led a squad of students to attack while he was carrying a cross and dying defenselessly, because he had no weapon when administering the sacrament to a wounded Polish soldier. He became a symbol of the whole battle, and today, in Ossów, there is a very beautiful initiative, a wall of gratitude on which 4 boards have already been hung. They are in gratitude to the Hungarians who sent all their ammunition to Poland, the 12 American pilots who tirelessly navigated in the air defending against Bolshevik planes, French sappers and a military mission that supported our activities, primarily the supply of weapons, and Polish Armenians who fully took the Polish side and became, as it was said, twice Poles.
I stali się, jak to mówiono, dwakroć Polakami.
So you're telling me that in these 2 places the Poles were able to stop the onslaught from the communists, but I was wondering, when did the counterpunch happen and where did it came from?
Trzeba wspomnieć, że Polacy mają dobrą pamięć historyczną.
It must be mentioned that the Poles have a good historical memory, and it was very carefully remembered that 90 years earlier, in 1830 and 1831, the Poles did not carry out a maneuver that would cut off Paszkiewicz's army that surrounded Warsaw from the west. We simply failed to gather such forces, and we lost the uprising. Although, for 90 years, the Poles thought it over very well, and when Paskiewicz was replaced by Tuchachevsky, Chief Military Commissioner, Marshal of Soviet Russia, at this point the plan of former generals returned to this plan, and a maneuver was carried out from such a small but important Wieprz River. The Wieprz flows south of Lublin, south of Warsaw. Indeed, the Soviet army went too far west and a gap appeared, which the Poles successfully entered. It is difficult to talk about the Battle of Wieprz River because there were no Soviet troops there. There were individual units that, at the sight of a powerful army, simply fled. Poles chased the Bolsheviks for 3 days to fight a battle at all. Ultimately, huge masses of the army were encircled. At night they broke through and the Poles set traps for them. But there is one interesting thing. One of the Polish troops found a huge Russian division sleeping in the forest. The commander forbade the killing of sleeping soldiers. He said to wait until they wake up, and then you can fight them. Indeed, it was only when they woke up that they discovered that they were encircled. They stood up to fight, some gave up, and some fought. In this way, they did humanely what was not done on the other side. Ultimately, the victory over Wieprz tipped the balance. The Bolsheviks did not expect this. They did not even know that they lost, and for the next 2 to 3 days continued the offensive towards the west. Even after that, they didn't really have any way to retreat. The troops crossed the border of East Prussia. The Germans were terribly afraid of them, so they were quickly transported to Lithuania, despite that they should have been interned. Also, the Polish population who lived in Warmia, Missouri remembered those troops as bad as possible, bloodied, dirty, and above all, ragged. It was an army of paupers that was fed there for some time, and Piłsudski did not interfere with this maneuver, although this army should be interned, should not be released. He agreed with this because he rightly noticed that an army, once scared, would escape from the battlefield once again. This happened in September when the Poles circled the Bolshevik army once more and liberated our borderlands. Unfortunately, the Poles were mostly out of ammunition. Polish cavalry occupied huge areas in the east, and when the truce with the Bolsheviks entered into force on October 18, 1920, about 200 to 300 kilometers further east than their future border, Polish guards were already at their posts. Besides, the Ukrainians went with us wanting to rebuild the Ukraine, but the shock of the previous Battle of Warsaw was so great in the nation that the Polish parliament removed Marshal Piłsudski from power, who advised against an early peace settlement. He said that you can't negotiate with an opponent until he is beaten, that it's not possible to negotiate with an opponent who hasn't been completely crushed, because the opponent will lie and cheat. Unfortunately, he was right. Despite that, negotiations began in Riga, the capital of Latvia, which also survived thanks to the Polish victory. The Latvians were very delighted that the Poles won because they saved their independence. The Latvians also saved us Poles the entire Powiat, which they took from the Bolsheviks, and when the Polish army arrived, they received these lands. In this situation, negotiations in Riga took the shape of a tender whether the Poles want to receive compensation for the fact that they were in a Tsarist state, a sum of 30 million zlotys rubles, gigantic already at the time, or land. Poles chose the money, but never received it.
Milionów złotych rubli, gigantyczna suma już na tamte czasy, czy też ziemię. Polacy wybrali pieniądze, których nigdy nie dostali.
The Battle of Warsaw was the decisive point of the Polish-Bolshevik War. It saved Europe from an imminent communist invasion and gave Poland a vital 20 years as an independent state before the outbreak of the Second World War. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Welcome to Poland Daily Travel and our second installment of A Touch of Paradise near Warsaw. That's right, the Campinos National Park. If you like paradise near the big city, this is your place. Our ranger guide, Katarzyna Mikrut, makes us feel at home in the park. We'll be finding out some more about the wildlife. We'll take a trip to the cemetery at Palmyra. And we'll take a look at the different kind of ecosystems. Nearly 40,000 hectares of forest. It's a big park and it's a lot of fun. So come with me and Katarzyna to Campinos National Forest.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Poland Daily. We are continuing our escapades, our aided escapades, because the rangers are with us in the Campinos National Park, which is easy for me to say, except right now when I'm on camera. I have with me our erstwhile and present guide, Kasia, and she is going to tell us what we're actually doing here. Because, look, folks, for us, we go to the park, we go there to relax, we go there to get away from it all. But this particular piece of real estate has served quite a different purpose over the years. And one of those purposes is hiding out from people who are trying to get you. And in the case of Poland, take over your country. There have been various uprisings based in the Campinos forest, including two against the Russians.
And the Germans.
And then, of course,
Nazis.
And of course, the Nazis during World War II. But this particular memorial is to the Home Army, the AK, Army Krajowa, during World War II.
Yes, because in the territory of Campinos Forest, many battles took place. And this is one of the commemoration sites to the battle. So in this area there was one of the biggest battles between Nazis and Home Army partisans.
Right in this area.
Yes,
so this
exactly.
It's kind of close to Warsaw, but yet it's still quite deep in the forest. And what is the point of this? The forest, the reason they would come and hide at this part of the region was because it is dense and it's hard, dense forest, and it's hard to go across.
It's a dense forest, marshes, so
sand dunes.
Sand dunes. So you really had to know where to move and how to walk.
Right.
Not to get lost.
Right. Natural barriers, all this sort of thing. And so it was a great, and in some sense you're saying, oh, please follow us into the forest. This is going to be fun, you know?
Because in some way it is fun, but on the other hand, you have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Because if you get lost, you may
end up
get stuck in
in their hands. You could get, you have to be very careful. But this is in the tradition of grand guerrilla operations, guerrilla operations, not gorilla, but guerrilla operations, which take place, all over the place.
Yes,
not
only here, so all over the world. People hide in the forest. It's a natural place to hide.
Even Robin Hood, remember those stories?
Yes, Robin Hood used the forest.
Yeah.
He was living there.
And don't go to Sherwood Forest, because I did that. It doesn't exist. There is no Sherwood Forest anymore.
I've been there last year, and in fact, there's no forest.
There's no forest, right? Because I went there, and the people started laughing at me locally. I just kept asking people, by the way, where's the forest? They said, there isn't any forest.
Yeah, there's only name and few trees.
Exactly. But here, we still have it. Because of people like Ranger Kasia and our driver for the day, Ranger Pete, who's standing just off camera. Hi, Pete. We appreciate you driving us around. He's a good man. Because of them, we have these places preserved. So that if the Germans ever attack again, we'll be right back here. Yes, we will. All of us. That's right. The other good thing about the forest is if you have airplanes, they can't find where to bomb you. If you have tanks, they can't get through because of the marsh and the dunes. So in many ways, the perfect place. Bicycles are good here, walking is good here, horses are good here. All things which the...
If we have snow also...
Snow is good, yeah. All of these things.
Also cross-country ski.
Yeah, and a lot of the people who are in the Home Army fighting in these battles were quite young, weren't they?
Very young.
Teenagers.
Very young.
Yeah, and even some young teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really real partisan effort.
Yes,
against a regular army.
War started in 1939 and finished a few years later. So it means that some people already died during the war. So young ones had to engage.
Or they were taken away. So the only choice was for young people to participate, which must seem very foreign to young people today, who are more worried about lots of other stuff. Yeah, but not survival, not that kind of survival. So anyway, this is one of the many. I see, this looks like a German cross to me.
But in fact, it is not.
Yeah, but people could make that mistake. It's worth saying. Yeah.
But there is some information which says what it is, so it will help people not to make a mistake.
Well, at the top it says Polska, so that's a good indication. Yeah.
And after it said that we gave our life to the homeland.
And so many of them did.
And our fate to the future generation.
To the future generations, which is worth remembering. That when these people did this, they were thinking of the future generations, not themselves.
Yes, they did that for us.
They were not thinking of themselves. They did it for us. Yeah, and it's well worth remembering on a beautiful Friday.
So that's why we have places like that.
And that's why we stopped here. Yeah. Stay with us on Poland Daily Travel. We're exploring the wilderness of the Campinos National Forest.